I am very late to the Cattle Decap party, but here I am with a review of their latest, the globally warmed apocalypse concept, Death Atlas. Animal friendly, human unfriendly. These guys came up out of San Diego in 1996 with some particularly schizophrenic death grind. Cattle Decapitation are Dave McGraw, newcomers Olivier Pinard and Billy Sadio DiMuzio, with longtime member Josh Elmore, each on the drums, bass, and guitars respectively, with original member Travis Ryan still doing the job of 5 as the vocalist.
What's the matter, dear? Have you burned yourself?
Come back, you stupid bitch, and get in the shelter!
Entire nations of human communities, poisoning everything, stripped of all immunities. This is the way we deal with our own kind. Suffer from the power of the human
What is up? I am Mario for 12 Gauge Slug. You can find me there and there with all kinds of metal content, and of course you can find me right here every week with a brand new review. Now, Death Atlas was one of the biggest releases this year, one of my most anticipated, so let's get right into it. So I wasn't really sure what to expect on this album when the singles came out. The first song of theirs that I ever heard was Success is Hanging by the Neck on their Karma Bloody Karma album, released way back in 2004. So I've always kind of associated them with that early death grind sound, along with the pro-vegetarianism, the misanthropy, which was always meant to be offensive. In 2012, the band released Monolith of Inhumanity with at least a bit of apprehension.
Is this acceptable to do? Is this okay to do? And I wasn't sure. When we put out Monolith, I was just like, well, it's been a good one, boys. Here goes nothing. We'll see what happens.
This was the first album to feature Travis singing in a very eccentric and sardonic manner, which added a powerful and unique dimension to the music. Monolith became the band's most critically acclaimed album, and they've since continued incorporating this singing style on the Anthropocene Extinction, and now heavily on Death Atlas. Overall, the first thing I noticed about this album is just how much more straightforward and conventionally structured it is compared to everything the band's released before. The style is no longer even nearly as crazy as it used to be on earlier releases. What we have on Death Atlas is essentially straight death metal with some heavily blackened tracks in the latter half of the album. It is very accessible for an extreme metal album, it's easy to listen to, and it's pretty catchy at times. The album comes in at 55 minutes, making it Cattle Decapitation's longest to date, comprised of 14 tracks total, 10 of which are songs, 1 album intro, and 3 interludes. The band have generally shunned the mission of specifically promoting a cease to the industrial slaughter of animals and have focused their sights on the main source of the human problem instead. The lyrics are very on-the-nose misanthropic, bleak, hopeless, and filled with contempt for mankind and our general carelessness for anything but ourselves, to our own detriment.
A truck, 2 refrigerators, 2 dumpster, 360 spin on the pals, backlit gainer, into the trash.
I want to mention right away that even though they get repetitive thematically, there are some very big statements within the lyrics that are both wise and admirable. I've written my favorites down in the comment section below, but the themes do get tedious with most of the songs expressing similar sentiments. After the very Day After Tomorrow intro skit, the first track proper, the Geoside, is one that mainly builds up the musical intensity and anticipation to get the album underway, and it does so quite well. Immediately, the musical production is noticeable, every instrument is audible in the mix. This track showcases almost everything you can expect to experience throughout the entire album in a very foreboding 3 minutes, but it's the solo that really sets this track apart from the others and makes it my favorite. The entire solo section goes through 3 movements with an extremely palpable emphasis on danger, panic, and chaos in the leads, but also in the rhythm sections, which change with and complement the leads very well. Fantastic work by the guitarists, and the fact that there's another solo only 2 tracks later in Vulturous in a completely different hard rock style speaks to their broad musicianship and ability. After the first interlude, The Great Dying Part 1, the gradual transition from death metal into the heavily blackened style of the album's latter half is well done. The heavy but very catchy One Day Closer to the End of the World very nicely builds up and breaks into its prominent sung passage, and it's one of the songs where the singing passage is very sensible within the overall song. And Bring Back the Plague following it is just a fun listen with its upbeat black metal melody and that huge breakdown ending the song. Another big one for me is Absolute Destitute with its vicious black metal intensity through the opening blasts of the song, and Finish Them is a very welcome, simple, straightforward, headbanging grinder a la Napalm Death that just falls on you after the preceding interlude. It bangs in, grinds, and breaks down, with Travis making some substantial statements along the way. Aside from those 2 fantastic solo sections, Travis Ryan is the main standout on this album. Of course, the instrumentation of the other band members is very good, without question, but this man is one of the best vocalists in extreme metal. He does it all. From the most guttural growls to the most gentle crooning in the album finale, and his ability to transition from one vocal style into another mid-voice is very impressive and exceptional. Even with all these very good moments on the album, I'm pretty underwhelmed by the very generic style of death metal. As opposed to their very distinct earlier sound, there is a strong processed feel to this album. Many of the songs are comprised of 2 or 3 main riff sections that are cycled throughout the song, and because of this, the songs seem to lack a real emotional intensity instrumentally, and they sound formulaic. And this is emphasized by the fact that there unfortunately really isn't anything about the sound on Death Atlas that stands out as exceptional within death metal. I do not know why there are only 2 solos on this entire album, and both of them within songs that are already in the first quarter of the album. Given the epic apocalyptic concept, and feeling what the solos do for the Geocide and Vulturous, and the simple fact that this band solos profusely and exceptionally well on previous releases, you're impressed by both solos within the first 4 tracks. And then you go the rest of the album without hearing another one. Travis's singing was a serious win on earlier album tracks where it seemed like it was used only where it was called for, but the sung vocals are included on every track of Death Atlas. They don't serve to elevate certain songs at all, and they make their flow very turbulent and choppy. The best example of this is Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts, which only just gets an intense death metal groove going before we're slowing down, now we're singing. A soft, melancholy chorus. And then chorus ends, suddenly now we're heavy again. The dynamic between the death metal and the sung bits is so bipolar and contradictory in this track that both the death metal and the sung bits are diminished into what is the worst track on this album. And it comes right after the big opening and build up in anticipation that the Geocide makes, which only exaggerates the fact that this song neutralizes the epic vibe and energy that had just built up. When the singing style is called for in certain songs, it's alright, but otherwise it sounds forced and almost inappropriate in a sense because the affect of the singing doesn't match the gravity of the themes. The band do intend to parody man's uglier flaws in many instances, but this style doesn't have the adequate impact it should on an album seeking to address an issue as emergent and potentially catastrophic as climate change. So, Cattle Decapitation's Death Atlas, a very death metal by numbers album with an impressive vocal performance by Travis Ryan, several very good highlights, and some real lyrical depth to be found in some songs, but ultimately a very standard, unexceptional album that often sabotages its sonic intensity with senseless singing passages and formulaic songwriting. This one is a 6.5 for me. Now, I know many of you are going to disagree and let me know about it, so if you do agree, then please get my back in the comment section below. How do you think it stacks up compared to previous releases, and particularly Monolith and Extinction, which also feature the sung vocals? Some of these songs on Death Atlas are going to kill live, and probably are already. Cattle Decapitation are touring the US with Atheist, Full of Hell, Primitive Man, and Vitriol. Those are 5 very good reasons to check this show out, and I explain why one of them is a particularly good reason in this review of Vitriol's EPs. Check it out. If you like this review, subscribe. I'll be posting a review a week, so let me know what you'd like me to review. Also, if there's a particular movie you'd like me to work into a review, send me these requests as well. I am Mario for 12 Gauge Slug. Take care.